Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another Season 7 Champion Guide. Today, we're covering top lane Illaoi.
I'm not big on sermons. Broken bones teach better lessons.
For more of my content, make sure you guys check out the video description. I've got a link to my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff, as well as a Patreon, and I did even start a new Discord, so if you'd like to just hop in and hang out or ask anything League of Legends related, please feel free. Keep in mind, I do my Riot Point giveaways on Twitter, so that's one you should definitely check out. All you have to do is follow, and when you see a giveaway, retweet the picture. But now let's hop into our Illaoi guide with her pros and cons. So Illaoi is a really good team fighter that brings pretty high damage to a team fight. Her ultimate becomes more devastating based on the amount of targets nearby, so of course in team fights, it is at its highest potential. During lane phase, she's then a really good lane bully and has great sustain as well. She restores health every time a tentacle hits a target, and of course this is her main way of actually doing damage, so she restores her health quite often. Illaoi is then finally a great champion for climbing elo from bronze to about gold. People on this elo usually won't have their mechanics quite down yet, and they will just kind of stand in Illaoi's ult and just explode. When you do get to the higher elos, people know how to fight Illaoi, and it's simply running out of her ultimate and re-engaging after it's over. This of course means she's not as effective in those higher elos, but she's still a relatively good champion. She does however also suffer from low mobility and is therefore highly ganked. Positioning properly in lane is very important, and you have to be warding properly. For our Masteries, we have a couple different options, but my favorite is 18 Ferocity and 12 Resolve, grabbing Death by Our Touch as our Keystone Mastery. This will make your Tentacle Smash do even more damage because it will be applying the burn from Death by Our Touch. Now, I'd only recommend going for this mastery if it's a champion you can hit rather often. If it's something that's going to dodge all of your tentacle smashes because of their high mobility, then go for something else. So my favorite alternative mastery page would be 18 Resolve and 12 Ferocity going for Grasp of the Undying instead. This will give you a lot more lane sustain, and you'll have a much easier time dealing with mobile champions since you'll have a nice amount of sustain when you are fighting them. If you then preferred some extra mobility, you could go 18 Cunning and get Storm Raider Surge as well, but it's not one I go for too often myself. For my rune page, I like to go for attack damage reds, armor yellows, magic resist blues, and attack damage quints. All this attack damage will make your tentacles and your tentacle smash hit much harder, which will really increase your harass. If you wanted to max your E ability first, you could also go for attack speed quints so you could get more auto attacks on that spirit from the enemy champion to do a bit more damage. But generally, with the Q max, I like to go for full-on attack damage myself. For your summoner spells, you'll first want to pick up Flash. You don't have much mobility, so this can save your life in many situations, and it works great with your Leap of Faith so you can hit as many targets as possible and spawn a lot of tentacles. You can begin your R ability, then Flash, and the tentacles will spawn wherever you flash to. Now, Teleport is the summoner spell I usually grab for my second slot. It will allow you to split push for large portions of the game and still allow you to make it to teamfights and objectives. When Illaoi shows up to a fight, sometimes all she has to do is use her Leap of Faith. A well-placed Leap of Faith can easily swing a teamfight in your team's favor. Now, Exhaust or Ignite are decent options as well if you are wanting them to win the top lane. Generally, you'll want to take Ignite against something that abuses healing like Swain, and take Exhaust if you need it against something OP like a Yasuo. Now let's kick off her abilities by looking at her passive, Prophet of the Elder God. Illaoi periodically spawns a tentacle on nearby impassable terrain if none are nearby. They last until killed or until Illaoi is out of range for 1 minute. Tentacles are commanded to attack every time a unit is hit by Harsh Lesson, a spirit spawns, or an enemy champion becomes a vessel. Vessels can only cause tentacles to slam them once. Once commanded, all tentacles in range slam towards the target, dealing physical damage to all units in a line. Ranks in Tentacle Smash increase the total damage dealt. Tentacles then hit beyond the first within 0.5 seconds deal only 50% damage. Whenever a tentacle deals damage to one or more champions, Illaoi restores 5% of her missing health. So all you really need to know is that you periodically spawn tentacles, your abilities cause them to attack, and they also restore your health. If possible, try to pull the enemy spirit into multiple tentacles with your E ability so they all strike down and hit that target at the same time. Alright, now let's look at that Q ability, Tentacle Smash. Passively, Illaoi's tentacles will deal increased damage. When you activate this ability, Illaoi will slam her idol into the ground, briefly summoning a tentacle that slams down in the target direction. So this ability is great because Illaoi is a melee champion, and this will give you some source of range damage. It's great for farming because as long as you're farming effectively, you're usually going to be able to one-shot the ranged minions. Of course, it's also great for harassing the enemy champion, and the passive is really strong as well because of course your tentacles will deal more damage. Now let's look at your W ability, Harsh Lesson. Illaoi's next basic attack gains bonus range and causes her to dash to her target, dealing bonus physical damage capped at 300 against non-champions. This will also reset your auto attack timer. So this ability is pretty solid because it is a short range gap closer, and it also deals percentage of target's maximum health, making it great against tanky champions. Other than that though, there's not too much else to say about the ability, just make sure you follow it right after an auto attack to cancel its timer to make better use of the ability. Let's now move on to your E ability, which has a lot more to it, Test of Spirit. Illaoi sends a tendril in the target direction that stops on the first unit hit. If the unit is a champion, the tendril pulls their spirit, granting true sight of them and placing it in front of Illaoi. The spirit will be connected to its target. The tether will then be severed if the spirit is killed or when the target moves too far away. Now over this duration, the spirit can be attacked by Illaoi and her allies. A percentage of the damage dealt to the spirit is also dealt to the target. Severing the tether slows the target by 80% for 1.5 seconds and marks them as a vessel, causing them to spawn a tentacle every 5 to 3 seconds for 12 seconds. So there's a lot to this ability, but basically what you want to do is pull the spirit into your tentacles so the tentacles hit it, and therefore its target will take damage. Whenever you do this, you'll also want to try to use your Q ability to hit the target and the spirit so they both take a bunch of damage, making it a really strong harassing combo. It's then going to be extremely annoying for the enemy champion because when they are a vessel, they'll keep spawning tentacles all around them and they're going to have to focus a lot of their attention on dodging your tentacles. Now let's move on to your last ability, your ultimate, Leap of Faith. Illaoi leaps into the air before slamming her idol into the ground, dealing physical damage to all nearby units and summoning a tentacle lasting 8 seconds for each enemy champion or spirit hit. For the next 8 seconds, all tentacles become untargetable, swing 50% faster, and Harsh Lesson's base cooldown is reduced to 2 seconds. So this ultimate is of course fantastic, and it's really strong in team fights because you get an extra tentacle for each nearby enemy champion. Now whenever you're doing this in the top lane, you'll want to get a spirit with your E ability so you get 2 tentacles instead of 1. You're also able to start casting this and quickly flash into a team fight and have all of those tentacles spawn wherever you flash to. It's a great way to spawn them just a little bit quicker, and it can really catch your enemies off guard. During the team fight, make sure you're using your W ability Harsh Lesson more often since it will only have a 2-second cooldown. Now we have 2 different skill orders on Illaoi, and we have the Q max and the E max. Now you'll want to go for a Q max when you're pretty sure that you'll be able to hit the enemy champion over and over again. This will obviously be those champions that lack some sort of mobility. However, even if they do lack mobility, if they have a really strong shield, then you may want to max your E as well because they'll be able to shield all the damage from your Q over and over again. So of course the E is good in those scenarios, but also whenever the enemy is very, very mobile and they can dodge your Qs rather easily. You'll want to max your E first and then grab them whenever you're pretty sure that you can land that grab and do a bunch of damage that way. In both cases, we of course max our ultimate whenever we can at 6, 11, and 16, and save our W for last. Just take 1 early point at level 2. Now we have a couple different combos on Illaoi, and first up we're going to look at that lane harassment combo. First, we'll want to use Test of Spirit to pull the enemy spirit into the range of 2 tentacles. Of course, when you have to, pull them into just 1, but when you can, get them into 2. You'll then want to hit the spirit with Harsh Lesson, and then try to hit both the spirit and the enemy champion with your Tentacle Smash. At this point, just auto-attack the spirit, or of course the enemy champion. For our all-in combo, we start the same, and we pull in the enemy's spirit with our Test of Spirit into our tentacles. We then cast Leap of Faith so it hits the spirit and the enemy champion. Then try and hit both the spirit and the enemy champion with Tentacle Smash. Finally, follow up by hitting the enemy champion with Harsh Lesson. Of course, in the late game team fights, your combo can be as simple as flashing in and casting Leap of Faith on all the targets, and then just spamming your other abilities. In the lane phase, Illaoi is a pretty good lane bully, so use it to your advantage. Harass the enemy by pulling their spirit into 1 to 2 tentacles with your Test of Spirit, and then hit them with both your Tentacle Smash and your Harsh Lesson. You'll then want to make sure you're focusing on getting as many last hits as possible. As long as you're farming pretty well and buying your items at decent intervals, you'll be able to take out all the caster minions with 1 Tentacle Smash and bring the melee ones down to about a third of their health. Finally, when you're level 6, try to all-in the enemy. Pull in their spirit with Test of Spirit, then land your Leap of Faith on both to get an extra tentacle, flash offensively if you do need to. Now Illaoi is a pretty damn decent team fighter, and most of it comes from her ultimate, Leap of Faith. You'll want to make sure you're activating it when you're around as many enemy champions as possible. If you're around 5 champions and you have an enemy spirit as well, you can get a bunch of tentacles and your Leap of Faith will be pretty damn devastating. Before a full-on teamfight starts though, you'll want to try to pull in one of the spirits with your Test of Spirit and have your team quickly kill it to harass the enemy quite a bit. Just make sure you remember that you are a tanky frontline champion, so you'll want to try to soak damage still so your carries can safely deal their damage. Now let's look at a couple of her hard matchups, and keep in mind I'm only showing 4 and there's a hell of a lot more. These will be 4 of the hardest though. But anyways, first is Jace, and he's a champion who can stay at range if he needs to and poke you all day with his Shock Blast and Acceleration Gate combo. Now since he is a ranged champion, he can also keep taking down your tentacles safely to make sure you're less effective. Then finally, as soon as you try to engage on him with your Harsh Lesson, he'll just knock you back with Thundering Blow. Now another hard matchup is Yasuo, and he's going to be really hard for you because you can't really ever land your Tentacle Smash or Test of Spirit because of his really ridiculous mobility. Make sure that you save your Test of Spirit until you're very sure that you will land it, and you will need to take Exhaust as your summoner so he can't easily all-in you. In this matchup, I would recommend taking the Deathfire Keystone to help deal with his shield. Now let's look at 2 more, and first this time is Singed. He's not going to try to 1v1 you, but instead he'll be proxy farming with his Poison Trail. Try farming under your turret and wait for pressure from your jungler, don't try to chase him past your turret. You'll then want to make sure you're warding rather deep so you can keep sight of him so he doesn't keep randomly showing up to lanes and ganking them. Now last here we have Poppy, and she's a champion who's great at trading because of her shield from her Iron Ambassador. Try and poke her down as much as you can with your Test of Spirit and Tentacle Smash, but make sure you're avoiding walls while you do so. If she can heroic charge you into a wall, you're going to take a ton of damage because she will hit you with both parts of her Hammer Shock. Alright, now let's cover that item build, and we want to start with either a Doran's Blade Health Potion and a Warding Totem, or a Corrupting Potion and a Warding Totem. For our core build, we have the Black Cleaver, Sterak's Gauge, and Death's Dance. This will already give you 30% CDR and an absolute ton of damage. The Black Cleaver is fantastic for shredding armor in team fights because your tentacles will be hitting the enemy team and of course be taking off that armor. Sterak's Gauge then adds some nice tankiness since you do get a shield, and it does increase your attack damage as well. Now Death's Dance is a fantastic way to get a bunch of sustain, and it really works well on Illaoi. When you combine it with the heal from your Q and you get a Spirit Visage later on, you are pretty damn hard to bring down, even though this isn't that tanky of a build yet. Now for core alternatives, you could get a Trinity Force or an Iceborne Gauntlet instead of the Black Cleaver. I see this from time to time, but honestly I'm not a fan at all. I do prefer having that amazing armor shred from your ultimate in teamfights from the Black Cleaver. If you were against a very heavy ability power team, then of course you could get the Maw instead of the Sterax. That is a very good alternative. For your boot options, we have Merc Treads against high AP/CC teams, Ninja Tabis against high AD teams, and Boots of Swiftness if you want all-around mobility. For our item pool, we first of course have the Spirit Visage. This is a very fantastic item on Illaoi because it will give you that extra 10% CDR, it will increase the healing from your Death's Dance and your Q ability, and of course it has magic resist. For your armor options, we have the Dead Man's Plate, Randuin's, and Thornmail. Actually, we're going to throw Frozen Heart in there as well. So Dead Man's Plate, great for mobility, Randuin's if you want to reduce damage from critical strikes against stuff like Yasuo and whatnot, Thornmail if you're against very heavy AD teams to return damage, and Frozen Heart to reduce attack speed. Guardian Angel and ZZ Rot Portal are both great ways to get both magic resist and armor, but of course they have their great benefits as well. Guardian Angel is of course fantastic for coming back to life, and then the ZZ Rot Portal is great for adding some nice split push. But for my normal full build, I take the core with Merc Treads, then finish it off with that Spirit Visage and a Dead Man's Plate. You'll be a pretty damn tanky bruiser, yet you'll do a ton of damage and have some really damn solid sustain. It is a very, very strong full build. But that, ladies and gentlemen, covers everything I've got for top lane Illaoi in Season 7. Don't forget to check out the video description below for a link to all of my different social medias if you would like to find more of my content. As usual, Twitter is where you want to go for my Riot Point giveaways. But other than that, thank you guys a ton for watching this champion guide, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!
Money, earn, crack money, drug money, bill money. Heard they got life for me, how they got life from me when they took that from me. Since I had my nose, really, yeah.